A broken family, a brutal murder, and secrets gradually uncovered. Laurie Cohn and her daughter Jackie were never truly close. But when tragedy struck Laurie's husband and Jackie's father, Jack Cohn was murdered in his own home, everything changed. Jack was beaten to death in a violent break-in, leaving the two women in shock and grief. At first, the loss seemed to bring them closer. But soon doubts arose and suspicion crept into every conversation. As their relationship fractured, they began to turn against each other. Who was truly behind the murder? As fingers point and accusations fly, the police must unravel buried secrets to uncover the truth. And in moments of desperation, people are capable of things no one could ever imagine. San Bernardino, California to OM, April 2, 2012. A 911 call pierced the quiet night. Jackie Cohn, 23, trembled as she dialed, fearing for her father, Jack Cohn, 64. She and her mother, Laurie Cohn, 47, had just returned home to a horrifying scene, the front door wide open, Jack's truck missing. As Jackie tried to explain the situation to the dispatcher, Laurie rushed inside. Seconds later, she returned, her face pale, snatching the phone from her daughter's hand. Her voice shook with panic. "I can't find my husband." Still holding the phone, Laurie ventured deeper into the dark house, stepping into the back bedroom. She fumbled in the darkness, her eyes scanning the room until they stopped. Jack Cohn lay there, in a pool of blood, beaten to death. When police and paramedics arrived, they quickly realized there was nothing they could do to save Jack Cohn. He had been brutally beaten to death, his hands and feet tightly bound with rope and duct tape, his body covered in wounds. The room reeked of blood, bearing the marks of a violent attack. Jack was not just an ordinary man. He was a licensed gun dealer who owned hundreds of firearms in his home. And now he was dead. At the scene, the police quickly separated Laurie and Jackie for questioning. Laurie, still in shock, said that she and her daughter had been gambling at the casino all night. When they returned home, they found the front door wide open and Jack lying motionless on the bedroom floor. Sitting on the grass in front of the house, Laurie sobbed, her voice breaking as she spoke of her late husband. "He was my best friend." Born in 1965 in California, Laurie Jean Gibson was not the type of woman to easily break down in tears. She was confident, tough, a woman who had learned to survive from a young age. Laurie grew up in poverty and started working at 15 to support herself. But her life truly hit rock bottom in 1984 when she had nowhere to go and not a single penny to her name. At just 19 years old, she wandered through San Bernardino, taking odd jobs to survive. A friend took her in, offering her shelter and even hiring her for household tasks. It was during this time that Laurie met her friend's older brother, a man who would change her life forever. Jack Cohn was 17 years older than Laurie and a modestly successful man. He ran a TV repair shop in San Bernardino, where many locals had brought their televisions for servicing. In addition, Jack was a licensed firearms dealer, a business that provided him with a steady income. He was funny, kind, and generous. Despite his stable career, Jack remained single at 36 until he met Laurie. That changed quickly. Just weeks after they met, Laurie moved in with Jack at his home, which doubled as his repair shop. Jack provided her with a place to stay, and in return, Laurie helped out at the store, answering calls and assisting with daily tasks. What began as an employer-employee relationship soon turned into something more. In 1989, they welcomed their daughter, Jackie, their only child. She became the bond that brought Laurie and Jack closer than ever. Jack adored Jackie, spoiling her unconditionally. As Jackie started school, Laurie took on a bigger role in helping Jack expand his business. Over a decade together, their marriage seemed solid and stable. But even as life appeared peaceful, cracks began to form, especially in Laurie's relationship with her daughter. Jackie, once a daddy's girl, became a rebellious teenager. She got into trouble at school, struggled with authority, and, most notably, had a strained relationship with her mother. While Jack continued to indulge his daughter, Laurie felt increasingly pushed aside, fueling tensions between husband and wife. In the years that followed, Jackie's life spiraled out of control. She married young, had several children, but her marriage failed. Eventually, she turned to drugs, not just using methamphetamine, but also dealing it. In early 2012, Jackie was arrested. Jack was devastated to see his daughter handcuffed and taken away by the police. But when she was released at the end of March, the aging father welcomed her back with open arms, continuing to care for her without hesitation. Surprisingly this time, even Laurie seemed happy to have Jackie back. She decided to put past conflicts aside and invited her daughter out for a night together. The two spent the entire night at the casino, but as they drove home at 4 a.m. on April 2, 2012, a horrifying tragedy awaited them. In the early hours of April 2, 2012, in San Bernardino, California, Laurie Cohn discovered her husband, Jack Cohn, beaten to death inside their home. A brutal murder, but was it a robbery gone wrong or something far darker? When police arrived at the scene, all initial signs pointed to a violent break-in. Someone had entered the house in the middle of the night and encountered Jack. But it seemed the intruders weren't just after ordinary valuables. Jack wasn't just a TV and satellite repairman. He was also a licensed gun dealer who owned hundreds of firearms. In an area rife with gang activity that made him a particularly dangerous target, Jack was not a careless man. He was extremely cautious about protecting his assets and his life. All his firearms were stored in a specially locked room, secured behind a heavy-duty safe door. He had even installed a surveillance camera system, turning his home into a true fortress. But on the night of the murder, none of these security measures mattered. The killers cleaned out the gun room, stole Jack's truck to transport their loot, and even took the DVR containing footage from the surveillance cameras. And yet, there was something strange. The intruders hadn't touched the store's safe, which contained $9,000 in cash. Evidence at the scene suggested Jack had been awakened in the middle of the night. When found, he was still wearing his pajamas. His hands and feet were bound with rope, and his neck had been restrained. It appeared that the attackers had tortured him, trying to force him to open the safe. When he refused to cooperate, they beat him to death. At the crime scene, Laurie and her daughter Jackie seemed completely devastated by Jack's tragic death. They cried, appeared in shock, and struggled to process what had happened. But as the police looked closer, something didn't add up. How had the intruders so easily bypassed Jack's security system? How could a heavily secured home be broken into with no signs of forced entry or significant struggle? Police quickly began to suspect that this wasn't just a random burglary. It might have been an inside job. It didn't take long for them to identify a possible accomplice. The first name on their list of suspects was Jackie. Early information suggested that Jackie might have leaked details about her father's security system to some acquaintances, leading them directly to the house on that fateful night while she and her mother were away. Laurie appeared shocked and confused when she heard this theory. She cooperated with the police, even admitting that she had her own doubts about her daughter. Jackie had a criminal record, a history of drug addiction, and had been involved in multiple troubles before. But when detectives asked Laurie point blank whether she believed Jackie could have killed her own father, she hesitated. After a moment of silence, Laurie finally said, "She's still Jack's daughter. I don't think she could do it. Even if Jackie was somehow involved, there was a major problem. She had an alibi." Laurie insisted that the two of them had been gambling at the casino all night. This complicated the case for the police. They decided to review surveillance footage from the casino to verify Laurie's story. And the footage confirmed it. Laurie and Jackie had indeed been at the casino, gambling throughout the night. But then Jackie revealed a shocking secret about her mother. Jackie sat there, tears streaming down her face, as she told the police the truth about her parents' marriage, a truth she had long chosen to ignore. "My mother had a gambling problem. When she lost too much, she started pawning my dad's stuff, then selling it outright. But that wasn't the worst part. She was addicted to meth too," Jackie choked out. The police were stunned by this revelation. From the beginning of the case, Laurie had appeared as a grieving wife, shattered by her husband's death. But if what Jackie said was true, Laurie wasn't just a heartbroken widow, she was a woman hiding dark secrets. Jackie continued, "My dad knew about the gambling. They fought about it all the time. But things got worse when my mom lost too much money. He worked so hard his whole life, but she just threw it all away at the casino. The fights got worse, and I think she wanted to get rid of him." The officers listened intently as the pieces of the case started to come together. Could Laurie have been behind Jack's murder? Had she arranged for someone to kill him to cover up her debts and addiction? Jackie had just exposed a completely different narrative, one that could turn Laurie from a witness into a suspect. She recalled a moment that now sent chills down her spine, seeing the name Shauna Bayliss appear on her mother's phone screen, a name tied to a world of crime and drugs. "Shauna called my mom and asked about Jack's keys," Jackie said, her voice trembling. The police immediately understood the significance of this detail. If Shauna had called Laurie to ask about the keys, it was highly likely that Laurie had given them access to Jack's house. And if that was true, this wasn't a random burglary, it was a planned robbery with Laurie's involvement. Jackie went on, "My mom got involved with those people after my dad kicked her out. She had no money, nowhere to go, and they gave her a place to stay in exchange for drugs." The police started piecing the timeline together. Jack had finally had enough and kicked Laurie out of the house. Homeless and desperate, Laurie fell in with criminals and addicts. Over time, she became entangled with them. When Jackie was released from jail, Laurie wanted to mend their relationship, so she took her daughter out for the night on the same night Jack was murdered. But on their way home, Laurie received a call from Shauna, a woman connected to dangerous criminals. If Jackie was telling the truth, Jack's murder wasn't an accident. It was a carefully planned crime. The only question that remained, was Laurie just a pawn in this scheme, or had she orchestrated the entire plan to have her husband killed? On April 4, 2012, more than 48 hours after she called 911 and reported that Jack was dead, police arrested Laurie Cohn for conspiracy to commit murder. That same day, officers knocked on the door of Shauna Bayliss. Just as investigators were handcuffing Shauna, an unidentified man bolted from the back of her house and jumped into a swimming pool. Police pulled him out and identified him as a criminal named Gary Gallion. Once in custody, Gary refused to speak, but Shauna did. She gave up names, revealed key details, and started with a confession, openly admitting her involvement. Shauna stated that Laurie was furious and devastated after Jack kicked her out of the house. That's when she and Gary began plotting the robbery. Shauna also claimed that Laurie had told Gary exactly how to disable Jack's security system. "The first thing you do when you get inside that room is take the DVR," Laurie allegedly instructed. On the night of April 1, Laurie went to a casino to establish an alibi. She was there with her daughter, while Shauna drove Gary to Jack's store. Gary was supposed to steal Jack's truck for his getaway, but the plan hit a snag. Frustrated, he called Shauna and said, "Hey, the gate is locked." Shauna then called Laurie and asked which of Jack's many keys would open the gate. "The green one," Laurie replied. According to Shauna, not long after, Gary arrived at her house with Jack's stolen truck, loaded with stolen goods, TVs, rifles, and more. It was only then, Shauna claimed, that Gary told her Jack had been murdered. On February 26, 2013, at the San Bernardino County Court, Laurie Cohn and Gary Gallion officially stood trial for murder. Both were charged with the killing of Jack Cohn, Laurie's husband, in April of the previous year. Prosecutors argued that Laurie harbored deep resentment after being thrown out of the house, which ultimately drove her to plan her husband's murder. The third accomplice in the conspiracy, Shauna Bayliss, pleaded guilty and cooperated with the authorities. She testified that Laurie had approached her for help in finding someone to carry out the burglary, and that person was none other than Gary Gallion. During the 9 months Laurie was in custody awaiting trial, she changed so drastically that friends and former neighbors barely recognized her. She had lost significant weight and appeared gaunt and pale. The most shocking testimony came from Laurie's daughter, Jackie. Standing before the jury, Jackie recounted how her mother was a compulsive gambler, drowning in debt, and had been kicked out of the house just months before Jack was murdered. Prosecutors argued that this was the breaking point that led Laurie to hatch her deadly plan. Shauna also testified in court, detailing Laurie's involvement from recruiting Gary for the burglary to instructing him on how to bypass Jack's security system. According to Shauna, Laurie made it clear that the first priority was to seize the DVR, ensuring no evidence was left behind. However, Gary made a critical mistake. He hid the DVR in a trash bin near a liquor store in San Bernardino. Police later found it completely intact. Though the footage did not capture Jack's murder, it clearly showed Gary breaking into Jack's gunroom. This meant he had not covered his face or attempted to conceal his identity. And if there were still any doubts about Laurie's motive, another witness stepped forward, Charles Duke. Charles testified that months before Jack's murder, Laurie had directly approached him with a murder-for-hire proposal, offering several $1,000s. His testimony was the final puzzle piece, completing the picture of a meticulously planned crime, not just a random burglary gone wrong. As the trial reached its decisive phase, Gary Gallion stood up, hoping to turn the tide in his favor. He desperately tried to deny all accusations, insisting that he had no involvement in the crime. However, prosecutors swiftly dismantled his lies. They presented a series of undeniable evidence from Shauna Bale's testimony and the recovered DVR footage to Charles Duke's incriminating statement. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Gary was the one who carried out the break-in and murdered Jack Cohn, all according to Laurie's plan. After hours of intense deliberation, the jury finally reached a verdict. They declared that Laurie Cohn had hired Gary Gallion not just to rob, but to kill her husband, all to fund her insatiable gambling addiction. Given the ruthless nature of their crimes, the harshest sentence was handed down: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Laurie Cohn and Gary Gallion would never walk free again. As the courtroom doors closed, the case that had shocked many came to an end. But in its place, a permanent sentence was sealed, one that ensured those who had killed out of greed would never see the outside world again.